he's a good God. And he would never see the righteous forsaken nor his seed begging for bread. He always provides a harvest. He always comes through for us. Look, even in our darkest times, I can remember some dark times in my life, but I can also remember God's deliverance from those dark times. And I'm telling you, if he did it before, he's going to do it again. And so those harvests continually come. Those harvests continually present themselves in our lives. But then some people, they don't believe that. Some people only think there's just, whatever they can muster up, whatever they can work for, whatever they can do. But truly, there is a harvest that some people are missing because of unbelief. Unbelief is a key ingredient in getting your harvest. We can't even see our harvest without believing for it. And so God set it up that we would believe him, trust him, that if we give our tithes and we give our offerings, that a harvest would come from that. But see, it's not only giving tithes and offerings that brings your harvest. It's you believing that the harvest is coming. And you say, oh, well, I believe. But do you believe? Because there's many people who don't even give. So those who give know that what they give is in seed form. And there's always a harvest in a seed. You ever notice that? You ever notice that if you plant a seed in your garden, that a harvest comes up? You ever notice that any seed that's planted brings forth more than what's seen within that little seed? God said in Genesis chapter 8, verse 22, that as long as the earth remains, seed time and harvest, cold and heat, winter and summer, and day and night shall not cease. See, as long as the earth remains, that means the earth is always going to be here. That means there's always seed time and harvest. You ever notice that? You ever notice that it's always cold? There's always heat. There's always day. There's always night. There's always summer, and there's always winter. It's consistent. And so why do we not believe there's always seed time and harvest? When God said it, he said it's always going to be seed time, always, even during your harvest. It's always seed time. And so that must mean even during my seed time, there's always going to be a harvest. And so I've got to believe God and take him at his word. See, it's not a matter of me, thinking, oh, it's just going to be the same old thing. I'm going to go to work, and all I'm going to get is my check. That's my harvest. I just want to tell you that your check from your work is not your harvest. Your harvest is greater, way greater than your seed. See, what you get at work is what you live on, basically. But God's talking about supplying all your needs. Most people's paychecks don't supply all their needs. They're always struggling. They always need more. But God said a harvest now will come perpetually to take care of all your needs. But we've got to believe it. Look at what it says, though. You can cancel out your harvest. Look at Galatians 6:7. It says, these are for people that don't believe. Do not be deceived. God is not mocked. For whatever a man sows, that he will also reap. 8. For he who sows to the flesh will of the flesh reap corruption. See, whatever you sow, you reap. But he who sows to the Spirit will of the Spirit reap everlasting life. And let us not grow weary while doing good, for in we shall, if we do not lose heart or faint or give up. Some people give up and they miss their harvest. Some people stop right on the precipice of their harvest. Right when the harvest is about to come in, they stop. they grow weary. The Bible talks about sleeping through the harvest. Some people stop, and how many know you'll never get a harvest if you give up? If you give up. Well, God sent me to tell you today that your harvest is right on the horizon. It's about to hit, and you're about to see those things that you've been believing God for, but only those things that you've been believing God for. God's not going to surprise you with the harvest. It's what you've been believing for. It's the seed you've been sowing. It's not an accumulation of seed you've been sowing. It's the seed that you sowed. I don't know if you get that. There's a harvest in every seed. How many seeds you've been sowing? Well, then you stand to receive multiple harvests on every seed that you believe God for, that you planted in the ground. The Bible tells us, except a grain of wheat fall to the ground, it abides alone. But if it dies in the ground, it brings forth much fruit. And so we've got to plant our seeds. But more to it than that, we've got to believe that those seeds will bring back the harvest that we've been believing God for. I don't know about you, but I'm going to call myself an exceptional reaper. Why? Not because I get so much, but because I believe so much. And I have to tell you, everything I believe for comes to pass. See, because God told us that if we believe, we receive. He didn't say, I think about giving it to you if you believe. He said that if you believe, I shall give it to you. It shall come to pass. And so you can't give up believing. Every time you sow a seed, you got to believe. Every time, whatever that situation is, I don't care if it's concerning your family, your marriage, your job, whatever you're sowing for. I told them in the first service, I'm believing for debt freedom. So the seeds I sow right now are debt freedom seeds, glory to God. And I'm believing that's going to come to pass. But I'm not going to give up. I'm not going to lose heart. I'm not going to grow faint just because the enemy is saying God's slow and God's taking too long. But I'm going to stand in faith and believe God until my harvest comes to pass. And you got to do the same thing. Glory to God. Let's stand to our feet.